So now we'll discuss TANZ Torrent's Grayscale, which is an inference processor. So this is the overall architecture of the accelerator. So it has 12 into 10 array of 10-6 cores. So each core here, this is called 10-6 core. Okay. So, and here it has 120 cores. Now, what is the total DRAM capacity will it have? What is the maximum DRAM capacity can it have?
16 GB.
Yeah, 16 GB. So here you can see it has 8 memory controllers, right? So it can get 16 up to 16 gigabyte of memory capacity, and it has LPDDR4, right? So now tell me, why do we use LPDDR4?
So for low power consumption.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
for low power consumption.
Yeah. So because this is an inference processor where our goal is to have low power consumption, that's why they have used LPDDR. Now here they have 4 CPUs which do the overall orchestration and management. Now this is the PCI Express. This is used to plug to the host, right? We have the host CPU. Through PCI Express bus, we connect to the host. It has 16 lane Gen 4 PCI Express. It can operate at 32 gigabytes per second. So even including DRAM and other components, it fits within the 75 watt limit of a bus powered PCI Express card. That means it doesn't need any external power supply. Just with the PCI connection, it can get the power. It has a peak performance of 368 tera operations per second, but that is integer operations. This is not floating point operations. This is made in integer int 8 operations. So I think for Goya, we did not specify what was the peak performance. We only specified the number of images that can be processed for ResNet 50 network. Now, for TPU, I guess we have specified TPU. Just a minute, let me see it. For TPU, what is the peak performance? Yeah, okay, yeah, I remember now. We did specify for TPU. What is the peak performance of TPU version 1?
So 92.
Yeah, 92. Okay, very good. For version 2, it is 46 with that is for brain floating point 16. And for version 3, it is 123. Okay, so for TPU, let's just compare with version 1 because version 1 is also for inference. So version 4 has a TDP of 75 watts, which is same as that of Grayscale, and it has a peak teraflops per second. That is also 8-bit integer. That is 92. So compare that of 92 there with 368 here. So that definitely it is much better, right? This is really good. One more thing is TPU version 4. That is also for inference. Till now I have not discussed. If I get time, I will discuss. So there the peak flop is 138. And that is, I guess, for here it doesn't say whether it is for, it just says both BF16 or 8-bit integer. So maybe it is for BF16. Now there the power consumption is 175 watts. Okay. So even if you just see the peak performance in the TDP, that means the power consumption. So that it really looks very, very good, right? This getting 368 tops with just 75 watt power consumption, it's a very, very good performance. It is even better than NVIDIA's T4. So T4 has a 130 T flops per second, right? For with 8-bit integer, NVIDIA T4 GPU has 130 teraflops of 8-bit integer, and it has a power consumption of 70 watts. Now compare that to here 368. That's very, very high. Now here it is manufactured in 12 12 nanometer technology. It is not even 7 nanometer design. Whereas many other chips are there which are designed in 7 nanometer. That's why they are able to achieve high performance. But here, just with 12 nanometer, here they are able to get very high performance. Now here it has 4 ARC CPUs. It is Synopsys CPUs. It is neither Intel, it is nor ARM CPU. It is Synopsys superscalar CPU. So these are the 4 CPUs. Okay. They manage the overall data flow. And they also handle spatial layers and functions that are poorly suited to 10.6 cores. So we saw the same approach in Brainwave. Brainwave is implemented on FPGA, but there are many applications which are not good for FPGA, so that's why they are implemented on CPU. So here, these CPUs, the 4 CPUs here, they are doing overall orchestration because there are so many cores at this 10.6 cores. So you need to send the data to suitable core. So that is taken care of by these CPUs. Now, here we are coming inside the 10.6 core. Okay, so each 10.6 core has 5 CPUs. These CPUs are different from those ARC CPUs. Okay, these are different CPUs. Please remember, these are superscalar CPUs. These are scalar RISC CPUs. Okay, these CPUs are inside each 10.6 core. Okay, right now we are seeing the 10.6 core itself. So here we have RISC CPUs that can access all the packet engine. They handle scalar processing and conditional execution. Conditional execution, for example, if and else, branch conditions related. For example, if you want to do early termination, we find out that some computation need not be done. So these CPUs can make that decision and then they can stop the compute engine from doing the work. Okay, if you now remember, in our Qualcomm's hexagon DSP, we had scalar cores and we had vector context, right? Vector threads, HVX. Similarly, in in Goya processor, what was the approach? We had GAN engine and we had TPC, tensor programmable cores. Okay, TPC. And we also had DMA. DMA is a different thing. Similarly, here we have CPUs for doing the scalar execution and of course conditional execution, and we have compute engine which do the matrix operation. Okay, so I'll just first CPUs are just tell you the. I'll come back to it 1 minute. Compute unit. Okay, so compute unit has a SIMD vector engine and a matrix and tensor engine. Okay, so it has overall each 10.6 core has a CPU, a vector engine, and a matrix engine. All 3 it has scalar, vector, and matrix. Okay, whereas Xeon Phi has only scalar and vector, and so on, right? So you can see different processors have different heterogeneous approach. So now there's a packet engine which links to the fabric interconnect and compute engine. So here there is a fabric interconnect, right? So see all these are 120. Now they are all connected by some fabric, right? So now inside each core we have a packet engine which links to the fabric interconnect and the compute engine. Now compute engine generates 3 TOPS. So this 3 TOPS is the performance of this compute engine. And if you multiply this 3, how many 10.6 cores are there? How many 10.6? Sorry?
8 cores.
Hemkant, how many 10.6 cores are there?
Sir, 8.
No. In the overall grayscale, how many total 10.6 cores are there? How did you get the number 8? 8 is the number of that memory controllers, right? That LPDDR4. That's a different thing. There is a how many 10.6 cores are there? Suman, Vikas, Sahu, Sai Vikas. That was the first slide I showed after the first slide. The second slide of this PPT was that how many 10.6 cores are there? How many 10.6 cores are there? Gaurav Ranjan, how many 10.6 cores are here?
120, sir.
Yeah, 120. Yeah,
120.
Yeah, 120. See, 12 into 12. Okay, so 12 into 10, so 120. Okay, so this three, see each compute engine is given actually not exactly three tops, it's slightly above 3 tops. So that's not mentioned here. So if you multiply that, what is this number? 360, right? So it's because it is slightly above 3, so it will become actually 368. It is slightly, so that's how this 368 number comes, peak performance of 368. Because this each core is not exactly giving 3 tops, slightly above three tops. That's why its number is coming to be 368 tops. Now, in each 10-6 core, we have RISC CPUs. So remember, these RISC CPUs are different from the ARC CPUs of Synopsys. Now, CPUs are programmable in C++, which allows developer to easily implement loops and conditional execution. Now, these CPUs can also include API calls that execute vector and tensor operations using compute unit. That means the CPUs also make sure that the compute unit remains busy. Okay, so CPUs do scalar code themselves, and vector and tensor operations are offloaded to the compute unit. Now, CPUs execute a single instruction per cycle using a proprietary RISC instruction set. Okay, 5 CPUs arbitrate for access to the single compute unit, which keeps the compute units busy. So, whole point is, see, you have, if you see compute unit as a slave, and you see 5 masters, CPUs are acting as a master. Master himself is not doing anything. He's just assigning the work to a slave. So now one slave has 5 masters. That's why that slave remains always busy. Okay, this is master slave is not a very respectable term, but in the computer world we do use this term, master and slave. So CPU is acting as a master. Master himself is not doing much. Master is doing some scalar operation, but the bulk of the compute is done by the vector and tensor unit, which is the compute unit. So five masters are giving tasks to the compute unit because we want the compute unit to remain as busy as possible. Then only we'll get the peak performance. Now each tile connects to adjacent tiles by 4 bidirectional connections. So how many connections it has? 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this figure is not for. This is not a figure for 10-6-4. This is just a figure for double two-dimensional torus. I took this figure from somewhere else just to tell you what is the what is a 2D torus. So once you have two-dimensional connections, and each tile has 4 connections. So this is the way it forms. Okay. So if instead of 4, if you had only 3, then you can't directly send the data. For example, here right now, this 30 can directly send the data to 100. Isn't it? This 00 can directly send, this 30 can directly send the data because of this connection. Okay, so instead of, the whole point is it is like very tightly connected. It has so many links so that you can quickly send the data from one node to another. Now, now let's see, there are some optimization techniques they are applying. One is the compression. Packet engine compresses data before transferring it to the torus. So the whole point is, see, if you have long strings of 0, suppose 10 times 0 is coming. So instead of sending 10 times zeros, you just send 0 and next is 10, which is, and you encode it in a way to make sure that it is interpreted that there are 10 consecutive zeros. So that way you achieve compression. Okay, in this way you achieve compression. Because see, a lot of the data is actually 0. That's the whole basis of pruning or sparse optimization, sparse neural network optimizations. Many activations are 0 because of ReLU. So, and these data are compressed before transferring it to the torus. At destination, compressed data is temporarily stored. That means if it is to be used right now, then it will be decompressed. Otherwise, if it is not needed right now, it will be stored as in a compressed manner itself. Whenever it is required, it will be decompressed. So in this way, we are storing compressed data. So we are optimizing the storage, and we are communicating compressed data. So our communication is also optimized. Okay, so both storage and communication both are optimized. And it uses large packets so that it can move huge tensors. Now, okay, coming to the compute unit. So, any questions till this point? Any questions? Okay. Compute unit has a SIMD vector engine and a matrix tensor engine. Now, this SIMD engine, let us now discuss first the vector engine. It performs basic and advanced math computations. It operates on 64 values at a time. So here you can see it's like a SIMD with vector length as 64. Okay, its vector length is 64. It has its own FP format. So whichever data types are supplied from outside, internally it converts it into its own FP format, so that it can accumulate many FP16 products without losing precision. So if you remember, in the brainwave also we discussed that externally it uses I think FP16, and internally it uses FP8 or FP9. Okay, it converts FP16 to FP8 or FP9, and then it processes it. Now, second is the tensor engine. It accelerates both convolution and GAN operations directly. Okay, that means it can directly work on GAN. It produces one set of results per cycle that can be stored in memory or redirected back into the unit for further computation. So main idea is here it can perform, operation of 64 values. Here it can accelerate both convolution operation and matrix multiplication operation. Of course, you can cast a convolution operation into a matrix multiplication operation, but the point here is it can directly accelerate convolution operation also without converting it first to the matrix multiplication operation. Now here let us compare the memory hierarchy of GPU and versus memory hierarchy of Grayscale. So till now, within the 10-6 course, we have discussed CPU, we have discussed packet engine, we have discussed compute engine very briefly, of course. Now we will see about the SRAM or the memory. Okay. Now in the GPU, we have very large register file size and we have multi-level cache, right? We have L1 cache, L2 cache, L3 cache. Of course, it also has shared memory, that is obviously there. But most important thing, it has very, very large register file size. Now, N6 core has very small register file, but each N6 core has 1 megabyte of SRAM, as I just now showed you. So it has flat memory hierarchy. That means there are no multi-levels of cache. It is all of that 1 megabyte is in the same level. That means it is not like L1 cache out of the 1 MB, some of it is L1 cache, some of that is L2 cache. No, the whole 1 MB is the single level of cache. That's why it's called a flat hierarchy. It is not like hierarchy, it is a flat memory level. So whole point is now because each 10-6 core has its own 1 megabyte of SRAM. So that's why data is kept very close to the compute engine. It's not that you have all the compute units here and all the data here. All the computes here, all the data here. No. It's a very, very tight integration of compute and SRAM. Okay, that means the data should be kept very, very close to the compute unit. So most of the time, the data that this compute engine needs will be stored very close to it here. Okay, it will be stored very, very close here. Now, because it has 1 megabyte of SRAM per core, and there are total of 120 cores, so total on-chip memory is 120 megabytes. Okay, total memory is 120 megabytes, which is 5 times that of Volta 100 GPU. Now, compute unit operates only on local memory. So this SRAM is called local memory. Okay, it is called local memory, and it can get data from other cores using NOC. That means if it needs more than 1 megabyte of data, suppose each compute unit, if it needs more than 1 megabyte of data, it can get that data from other cores by the chip, by the interconnect, network on chip interconnect. So here, as I see this is the interconnect, right? So here, if I need some data which is actually stored here, so that can be moved from here. Now it supports int 8, FP8, FP16, BF16, and block FP format. So I'll just now explain very soon. I will explain this. But can you find any missing? Which precision does it not support? An important one.
FP32.
Very good. Yeah, but so how can you justify that it doesn't support FP32? Is it a big loss, or can we still live without it? Yes, Krishna Chaitanya?
Sir, I would. It is a loss in terms of, but it is not aiming at the high end. This thing, so it is probably at that particular level, so that FP32 is not required, sir.
Okay, slightly. I need slightly more precise answer. Anupam, can you please tell how it is? Anupam.
Sir, it is if we have to back integrate, sir, like from integration with the back end devices or the lower version devices, it will be difficult, sir.
No, forget other devices. Suppose I just have this, and I'm using it for the stated purpose. Then is it okay, or is it a loss?
Sir, I feel it's a loss, sir. Little bit of loss if we are not able to.
So why did they not? What may have been the reasoning?
Maybe, sir, BF16 would have taken over most of the functionalities of.
Sorry, which one?
Sir, BF16 would have taken over most of the functionalities which FP32 is going to provide, sir. Maybe.
Yeah, that is correct. That is correct.
Maybe
slightly okay. I think see the answer that I'm looking for is this is used for inference. During inference, we can afford to work with lower precision.
Okay.
In training, we can't afford. We need at least BF16. But in inference, it is okay to have lower precision. In fact, TPU has just int 8. It doesn't even have BF16. And here, in fact, although it has FP16, FP8, and so on, the peak precision that I showed earlier was for this. That means mostly it will use int 8, but even if some application needs higher precision, it can use FP16 or BF16, although that will lead to low throughput. That means you're getting higher accuracy at the cost of lower throughput. Okay. Now let us see what is block FP format. So this here, actually in Grayscale, it groups 16 values that share the same 8-bit exponent. This is just a this is the simple illustration of what block FP format is. Here it is only showing that 5 numbers, they have the different mantissa, but their exponent is same. So here it is only 5, but in Grayscale, actually there are 16 values that share the same exponent. So here 5 values are sharing the same 4-bit exponent, but in Grayscale, 16 values share the same 8-bit exponents. Okay, so it's just like that. Suppose you have numbers which are almost in the same range, like 5.4, 5.9, okay, 6.3, 7.4, 4.8. So when you try to convert them into floating point number, you will see that their exponent values are almost similar. Most probably it will be similar only, right? Only their mantissa may be different. So that's why instead of separately storing the exponent of all of them, we can store the exponent just once, and we can store mantissa multiple times for each of these numbers. That means for each number we can have its own mantissa, but their exponents are same because these numbers are they are spreading to within a small range only. They are not spreading in a large range. Okay. Any questions? Okay, so it doesn't support FP32. That means it is not primarily intended for training. In training, we do need FP32. Now it connects to 8 DRAM controllers, which I already showed you. Now each controller supports a single chip for a maximum memory size of 16 GB. So LPDDR consumes less power than DDR memory. I hope you at least accept the point. And it has lower cost than a high bandwidth choice such as GDDR or HBM. HBM has high memory and GDDR also has high memory, graphics DDR. So compared to them, LPDDR has low bandwidth So, sorry, high memory bandwidth. Yeah, these two have high memory bandwidth. Compared to them, LPDDR has much lower bandwidth, but LPDDR saves you the power and also reduces the cost. Each chip delivers. Here chip means DRAM chip. Okay, each DRAM chip has 16 gigabyte per second of bandwidth for a total bandwidth of 132 gigabyte per second. And yesterday we discussed, no, not yesterday, but whenever we discussed Goya, what was the bandwidth of DDR4? What was the bandwidth of DDR4, total bandwidth of DDR4? You can see the slide if you want. Any answers?
2.66.
No, that is transactions. G, you please ignore that. Other than that, you tell me the bandwidth.
40
gigabyte per
40
second.
GB.
40 GB, yes, 40 is the answer. So compared to that 40, here it is 132. So this 132 is still much less than HBM, right? There with TP version 2, it was like 700, and with version 3, it is 900. So compared to them, it is much less. But here, anyway, we are only doing inference. For training, we need much higher bandwidth. But for inference, we need lower bandwidth. So here, the bandwidth is good. And it is also much larger than that provided by DDR4. But again, remember, this is the peak bandwidth. That means if you're fetching at any point of time, if all the 8 controllers are sending or receiving the data, then you get this. In real or at any actual use case, it will be lower than that. Okay, so what are the overall optimizations they've applied? They're using int8, that means they're using quantization. They're using LPDDR4, which saves power and which reduces the cost. It does sparsity optimization. So that means whenever one of the input operand is 0, either that means if either weight is 0 or input is 0, then it does not perform any computation or actual computation. It just skips that computation. That's why, so the such computation is called ineffectual or trivial computation. If you remember my approximate computing, suppose we have y into x, right? This is y. Now, if one of them is 0, we know that the output is 0. So what is the point of doing such ineffectual computation? So that's why here the compute unit, right? I showed this is the compute unit. So here this compute unit, here it already has that optimization such that whenever it is multiplying, if one of the input is 0, it doesn't do the actual computation. It just skips that computation. So you save the multiplication power. Okay, now it is also using compression. Okay, it is also using compression so that less data flows in the chip, in the interconnect network on chip, because you are sending only compressed data. Okay, now here we have many cores, right? We have 120 cores. So instead of designing such small cores, one option was I just designed one core, one very large core. That's called monolithic or single core. So with that one core, it's not possible to. I mean, you can't do fine-grained optimization. Suppose my workload requires only 20 small cores. So here with the Grayscale design, I use only 20 and remaining 100 are not used. I don't waste any power for them. But if I have only one large core and I need only 1/6 of that, it's not, I have to spend energy for the whole core. Okay, so having small core count improves utilization. Now, another thing is most of the accelerator, if you see, for example, see TPU. TPU has only systolic array. It doesn't have any CPU inside it, right? So if your code is highly parallel, it has very good serial computation, then fine. But if your code is such that it also has some scalar operations, then systolic array is not good for that. Systolic array can't do that. Okay, so that's why here the good point is that it also has each 10/6 core has its own CPU so that it can focus on scalar code. And I will show an example of how conditional core execution can also be useful for optimizing the Siemens. So here are the processors which have sparsity optimizations. I have already discussed Cerebras. At that point, I also explained this point, how they have sparsity optimization. So again, just to explain, if you have input and weight, if any one of them is 0 or both of them are 0, you don't do that multiplication. You just skip it. That is called sparsity optimization. And I will next discuss Anguan, and I will also discuss Tsunami. There you will also see how these optimizations are there. Now let us see the results. So here we are comparing Grayskull with NVIDIA's Titan RTX, and I have not discussed TSP for till now. I will discuss it later. Okay. So here in TSP, it has just one large core. Okay, if you see the area first, let us see the area. So here die area is 620, and here it is 725. Here it is 754. So here TSP's approach is just to use one large core. Okay. Now here you see it provides 368 TOPS. I already just now discussed it. Here it provides 820 TOPS, but this is the peak. Actual utilization is much less than 820. But somehow, suppose you can achieve peak utilization, then it's really great. Right? 820 is a very large number. Now this is the peak FP16 performance. So here it is 92. So you can see it is 1/4. Right? So although 16 is actually just double of 8, but you also have this FP part. That's why it is 4 times less performance with FP16 than what you get with int 8. Similarly, here also it has 4 times less performance. TSP also has 4 times less performance. Okay, here it has just half, no, not 4 times less, just half performance. Okay. Now here, let us see the frequency. Here it has 72 cores. Okay, fine. Now here it is 1.3 gigahertz clock. Here it is only 1 gigahertz. Again, you see, right? We are keeping the frequency low. We don't want to get very high frequencies so that we can save power. And here you see the power consumption is only 75 watts. Here power consumption is 300 watts, which is very high. Here it is almost close to 300 watts. That means these are for high power. They take high amount of power, whereas this one takes very low amount of power. Okay, so if you do performance divided by TDP, then this will be better, right? Because here it is just slightly more than double, but here it is like 4 times. So if you just see how much performance you are getting for each unit of watt that you spend, then Grayskull is better. And definitely is better than Titan RTX. But of course, this is a GPU. ASICs will definitely be better than GPU. Now here it has 120 megabyte of memory. Here it is 220 megabytes of memory. Okay, here it is only total 18 megabyte of register file. Here they have not counted the SRAM for that we use for cache. So that is not counted. Here we are only counting the register file size. You can also, if you want, you can also add the L1, L2 cache size also. Now here it has, we already discussed this point, it has 8 LPDDR4 channels. Here it has total of 132 gigabyte per second. Here it has none. So what do you mean by none? Here, what is the meaning of none?
No DRAM, sir.
No DRAM, yeah. It has no DRAM. It only relies on SRAM. That's why it has large SRAM. Because it tries to keep all the data in the SRAM itself. It doesn't rely on DRAM. That's why it has no DRAM channel. So see, the point is, because it has no DRAM channel, so you don't need to keep any memory controller. So you save that much area. Okay. So if you see here, you have to have these memory controllers See, DRAM chip, it's separate, right? You must have seen those DRAM chips which can plug into the desktop, then you can remove it. But at least the memory control needs to be there on chip. So this area for 8 memory controllers you need to spend. But in TSP, because you're not having any memory controller, so at least you save that much area. Okay. Now here they have not disclosed their interconnect. So here this is generation 4, this is generation 4, this is generation 3. So I have not gone into this PCI generations. If you want, you can read on Wikipedia about this generation. Each generation gives you certain bandwidth and so on. Now here DRAM bandwidth is 132 gigabyte per second because it is on the LPDDR. Here it is graphics double data rate. That's why it gives you high bandwidth. So mostly this is for like training also, and like workloads which are more compute intensive. Here it is NVLink. Okay, we'll skip it. Now here, if you see, this is very interesting. Inference IPS. Can you think what could be a full form of IPS? Take a guess, Sagar. What do you think will be IPS? Read that whole row, then try to guess what is IPS. Anyone else? IPS is images per second. Okay, images per second. That means if you are doing inference with using ResNet 50 network, which is running on each of this hardware, then how many images are you able to process in each second? So here you can process 22,000 images. Here it is only 20,000. So that means even though it is consuming 300 watts, this is consuming 280 watts, but it can process less images than Grayscale, which is really interesting. Okay, is it fine? That shows how it is a very, very mature and very, very optimized accelerator. And if you see how much, okay, this one, can anybody explain what is the meaning of this metric? Can you explain what is the meaning of this metric? Ashish, Subham? Gaurav? Anyone else?
It's similar to efficiency, like 23%.
Again, you are using one more metric. You just describe in a layman's term without one more metric.
Like in the practical sense, the maximum upper limit it can achieve.
It is something like operations per second. 23% of some operations per second.
Okay. See here the peak performance it can provide is suppose we are only using Intel, so it can provide 368 TOPS per second. That means in each second we can perform 368 tera operations. Now that is the peak performance. Remember, this is the peak. Now peak is like a theoretical. You will not be able to always achieve peak. Peak can only be achieved if all the hardware that I have is always available, or I am able to use it. Right? That means my application code is able to use the entire hardware. That may not be possible. My application may not be that much optimized. So here, out of the total 368 TOPS per second, that means 368 tera operations per second, I am able to use only suppose 1/4. That means only 23% operations. For achieving this performance, in each second, if you multiply 23 into 368, how much is that number? Tell me, someone.
Sir, 0.23 into 360.
Yeah, of course. So,
85. Close.
This how much?
85. It's close.
Yeah. So that is of course percentage. So 85. Okay. So this means that for achieving this much inference per second, I'm only doing 85 tera operations per second. Other hardware is remaining idle. Okay. See, I have 120 10/6 cores. So just for sake of easy understand, instead of 23, you just assume it is 25. Doesn't matter much, right? 25. That means only 1/4 of my cores are fully busy, others are idle. That is the meaning of utilization. Utilization is how much of the resources I'm able to utilize. So out of the, if I had 100 cores, I'm able to utilize only 23 cores or 25 cores. Others are idle. Or you can say like all the 100 cores I'm using, but each core is utilized only 25%. Okay, so that means all the compute hardware I'm not able to even utilize. So here you can see the percentage utilization is much less, although it can offer a peak performance of 820, right? Maximum you can do 820 teraflops per second, but here it is only doing 11%. That means it is how much that will be? 11% of 820.
90.
It will be less. Sorry?
90, sir. It's more than 87.
It's more. How much will that be? 90.
90.
Yeah, 90. Okay. So see here I'm doing, although it maximum it can give is 820 teraoperations per second, but it is actually doing only 90 teraoperations per second. And here it is only doing, here it is doing 85 teraoperations per second actually. Now here if you see, this is the ResNet 50 efficiency. So that means you divide this number IPS with the TDP. So this is the number you get, 393. Okay, this is, and you divide this number with 300, so you get 68, and you divide this number with 280, so you get 62. So now you can see at least on this metric it is much better than other two accelerators. Okay, and here it is Global Foundry 12 nanometer, here it is TSMC 12 nanometer, and the area is already large. This is actually maximum I think you can get is only 800. So these chips are already very large. You are reaching the limit of what you can get on each chip. So that although even the area here is much smaller, even with that it is much superior performance. So now let us see comparison. So although TOPS rating they are similar for Turing core and 10.6 core, each 10.6 core is 3 TOPS. Okay, 3 TOPS. Now each Turing core, I don't have that number. I will have to check. In this course we have not discussed, but I read that they are similar. But and both cores are easily programmable. They can handle a wide range of workloads. But GPU has far less on-chip memory, so it requires a much higher bandwidth connection to DRAM. Higher bandwidth here means we have to have like GDDR or HBM connection to DRAM. Only then we can get enough amount of memory. But 10.6 core has all that memory on chip itself. Now Grayskull avoids this cost and it also optimizes for sparsity, which GPU does not do. Okay, GPU, one optimization that GPU does not do is it doesn't optimize for sparsity. So this sparsity is a very unique characteristic of neural networks. The other scientific workloads don't have that much level of sparsity. That's why accelerators can easily implement that option because your workloads have that feature, right? That's why they can achieve higher performance. That's why it delivers more peak performance at 1/3 of the total power. Okay, so interesting, right? Although both cores are programmable, but here you have more amount of on-chip memory, right? You have 120 megabyte of on-chip memory compared to GPU, which is much less amount of on-chip memory, and it also optimizes for sparsity. That's why it can deliver more operations per second. Now let's compare TSP with Grayskull. So TSP is this one here, tensor streaming processor. So we are now comparing this one and this one. Although it generates more than 800 teraops per second, and it has 220 megabyte of on-chip SRAM, which is almost double, right? 120 versus 220, but it has no DRAM. However, the limitation of TSP is that it has far more power consumption, right? It has 300 watts, whereas Grayskull has only 75 watts. And it has very poor utilization. We saw, right? Here it is only 11%, which is less than half of this one, and half of also this one. And this one we have already discussed. This has more inference, image per second throughput than GPU and TSP. Now this is at the batch size of 20. Now at batch size of 1, the IPS of Grayscale reduces to half, and of GPU it reduces to 1/5. That means whatever is the total, it remains to 20%. So here it was 17,000. So you divide it by 5. That much will be the IPS at batch size of 1. So, however, because TSP has just 1 core, that's why it is very good at small batch size. Okay, so that means at the batch size of 1, TSP is best. But if that batch size condition is not there, you can choose any batch size. Then Grayscale gives you much higher throughput. Okay, so till this point, is it clear? Any questions? Any questions till this point? So what we have shown here is that different batch size, what is the throughput? At high batch size, it has very good throughput. When you reduce the batch size, the throughput also reduces for Grayscale and GPU. But for TSP, it does not reduce. I mean, because TSP is optimized for low batch size, because TSP has just 1 core. Any questions till this point? Now I will discuss this point. Okay, so BERT, have you heard the name of BERT? BERT is actually used for natural language processing. Okay, so here, because Grayscale has 10/6 cores, each of which has 5 CPUs. So, and they allow scalar and conditional execution. So here, using those CPUs, what you do, you check whether you need to do more iterations. That means whether those iterations will give you any additional benefit. If they are not giving you additional benefit, you cut, you stop. Don't do any more iterations. And you can also use variable sequence lengths. So using this, you can improve performance. And that is the benefit of conditional execution, right? So conditional execution is like that. That means if it is going to provide you more and more performance, then continue. Otherwise, else stop. Okay. So this can be efficiently executed only on CPUs. On GPU, this can't be efficiently executed. So you can see the utility of conditional execution, that for many of the CNNs, it can use it to improve performance. Okay, any questions? No questions? Okay. Now here is the comparison of images per second. So here Alibaba's Han Guang processor is there. I mentioned that name earlier. I will discuss its architecture later on. And here we have TensorTorrent, which we are currently discussing. This is Grayscale. This is TSP from Groq. This is Intel's Goya. This is T4. And NVIDIA Titan. Titan is for training. T4 is for inference. So the best is Han Guang. Okay, but Han Guang has used some additional optimization that I will discuss. Now here is so that's why it gives you the best IPS. Okay, and best IPS per watt. Here it gives you second best TensorTorrent, and it also has very good IPS per watt. Groq TSP has very good, I mean, a reasonably good IPS, but its IPS per watt is quite poor. See, these are logarithmic scales. Okay, these are both logarithmic scales. Titan, it has, all of them consume high amount of power, and T4 has poor IPS, but its IPS per watt is somewhat good. Okay, so now what is the trick that Han Guang is using? So Han Guang is from Alibaba. So they have, because it uses low voltage operations, it allows you to operate at low voltages, and that's why it is able to achieve high IPS per watt. Okay, this is additional optimization which hardly any other chip has implemented. Now, Grayscale is 2 times more efficient than Goya and 4 times more efficient than Titan, RTX, and TSP. So both. Now, T4 GPU has same TDP as Grayscale, but its power efficiency is much lower. So here you can see T4 has a power budget of 70, watts. Here it is 75 watts. Okay. So although they're consuming the same amount of power, but still it is giving you much higher performance and much higher IPS per watt. So these are the references which I used.